Human reproduction. Humans, as you are aware, are viviparous and reproduce sexually. In humans, reproductive events include formation of gametes, that is ovum, in females and sperms in males, transfer of sperms into the female genital tract, and fertilization, that is fusion of male and female gametes leading to formation of zygote. This is followed by blastocyst formation and development and implantation, that is its attachment to the uterine wall, gestation, that is embryonic development, and parturition, that is delivery of the baby. You have learned that after puberty, these reproductive events occur. The reproductive events in male and in female show remarkable differences. For example, even in old men, sperm formation continues, but in women, formation of ovum ceases around the age of 50 years. Let us examine the male and female reproductive systems in human. The male reproductive system. In the pelvis region, the male reproductive system is situated. It consists of external genitalia, glands, and a pair of testes along with accessory ducts. Outside the abdominal cavity and within the pouch called scrotum, the testes are situated. The low temperature of the testes is maintained with the help of scrotum, which is necessary for spermatogenesis. In adults, each testis has a length of about 4 to 5 centimeters and a width of about 2 to 3 centimeters, and it is oval in shape. The testis is covered by a dense covering. About 250 compartments called testicular lobules are present in each testis. Sperms are produced in each lobule, which contains 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules. Two types of cells, namely male germ cells and Sertoli cells, line on the inside of each seminiferous tubule. The male germ cells form sperms by undergoing meiotic divisions, while nutrition to the germ cells is provided by Sertoli cells. Outside the seminiferous tubules, in some regions called interstitial spaces, small blood vessels and Leydig cells or interstitial cells are present. Testicular hormones called androgens are synthesized and secreted by Leydig cells. Also present are the other immunologically competent cells. Rete testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, and vas deferens are the male sex accessory ducts. Through rete testis into the vasa efferentia open the seminiferous tubules of the testis. Of each testis, along the posterior surface is located the epididymis, where the vasa efferentia open into after leaving the testis. The epididymis leads to a vas deferens that loops over the urinary bladder by ascending the abdomen. From seminal vesicle, it receives a duct and as an ejaculatory duct opens into urethra. From the testis into the outside through urethra, these ducts store and transport the sperms. From the urinary bladder, the urethra originates, which extends through the penis to its external opening called urethral meatus. The male external genitalia is the penis. It is made up of special tissue that helps in penis erection to facilitate insemination. Glans penis, the enlarged end of penis, is covered by foreskin, a loose fold of skin. Paired seminal vesicles, a prostrate, and paired bulbourethral glands are the male accessory glands. The seminal plasma is the secretion of these glands, which is rich in fructose, calcium, and certain enzymes. The lubrication of the penis is brought about by the secretions of the bulbourethral glands. The female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is composed of a pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia located in pelvic region. Apart from these, integrated structurally and functionally are a pair of the mammary glands to support the processes of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and childcare. The primary female sex organs are the ovaries that produce several steroid hormones and the female gamete. One on each side of the lower abdomen, the ovaries are present. The length of each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeters, and by the ligaments it is connected to the pelvic wall and uterus. By a thin epithelium, each ovary is covered, which encloses the ovarian stroma. The peripheral cortex and the inner medulla are the two zones of the stroma. The female accessory ducts include the oviducts, uterus, and vagina. Each fallopian tube measures about 10 to 12 centimeters long, and from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus it extends, and the funnel-shaped infundibulum is the part closer to the ovary. The finger-like projections called fimbriae are present at the edges of the infundibulum, which after ovulation help in the collection of ovum. The infundibulum leads to ampulla, a wider part of the oviduct. Isthmus, the last part of the oviduct, has a narrow lumen which joins the uterus. The uterus is also called womb and is single. The shape of the uterus resembles an inverted pear. The ligaments attached to the pelvic wall support the uterus. Through the narrow cervix, the uterus opens into vagina. The cervical canal is the cavity of the cervix which forms the birth canal along with the vagina. Three layers of tissue are present in the wall of the uterus, and they include the thin membranous perimetrium, which is external, and middle myometrium, which is a thick layer of smooth muscle, and the inner glandular layer that lines the uterine cavity, the endometrium. During menstrual cycle, cyclical changes occur in the endometrium, while during delivery of the baby, the myometrium exhibits strong contraction. The external female genitalia constitute mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. A cushion of fatty tissue covered by skin and pubic hair forms mons pubis. Fleshy folds of tissue extend down from the mons pubis and surround the vaginal opening called the labia majora. Under the labia majora are paired folds of tissue called the labia minora. A membrane called hymen often covers partially the opening of the vagina. At the upper junction of the two labia minora, above the urethral opening, lies the clitoris, which is a tiny finger-like structure. During the first coitus, the hymen is often torn. However, the hymen can also be broken by a jolt or a sudden fall, insertion of the vaginal tampon, active participation in some sports like riding, cycling, horseback, etc. Even after coitus, in some women the hymen persists. The presence or absence of hymen, in fact, is not a reliable indicator of virginity or sexual experience. A characteristic of all female mammals is a functional mammary gland. Glandular tissue and variable amount of fat are present in the mammary glands, which are paired structures. In each breast, the glandular tissue is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes containing alveoli that are a cluster of cells. The milk is secreted by the cells of the alveoli, which is stored in the cavities of alveoli. The alveoli open into mammary tubules. The tubules of each lobe join to form a mammary duct. A wider mammary ampulla is formed when several mammary ducts join, which is connected to lactiferous duct through which milk is sucked out. Gametogenesis. The primary sex organ, namely the ovaries in females and the testes in males, produce gametes, that is ovum and sperms respectively, by the process called gametogenesis. The immature male germ cells in testes produce sperms by spermatogenesis that begins at puberty. On the inside wall of seminiferous tubules, the spermatogonia are present, and by mitotic division they multiply and increase in number. Each spermatogonium contains 46 chromosomes and is diploid. Some primary spermatocytes called spermatogonia periodically undergo meiosis. A primary spermatocyte completes the first meiotic division and forms two equal haploid cells called secondary spermatocytes containing only 23 chromosomes each. The secondary spermatocytes form four equal haploid spermatids as they undergo second meiotic division. In the spermatids, what would be the number of chromosome? By the process called spermiogenesis, the spermatids are transformed into spermatozoa. Sperm heads become embedded in the Sertoli cells after spermiogenesis, and by the process called spermiation, sperms are released finally from the seminiferous tubules. At the age of puberty, spermatogenesis starts due to significant increase in the secretion of gonadotropin-releasing hormone. If you recall, this is a hypothalamic hormone. The anterior pituitary gland is then acted upon by the increased levels of GnRH, which stimulates secretion of two gonadotropins, the follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. The Leydig cells are acted upon by LH and stimulate synthesis and secretion of androgens. The process of spermatogenesis is stimulated by the androgens. The Sertoli cells are acted upon by FSH, which stimulate secretion of some factors which help in the process of spermiogenesis. Let us examine the structure of a sperm. A sperm is a microscopic structure that is composed of a head, neck, a middle piece and a tail. The whole body of the sperm is enveloped by the plasma membrane. An elongated haploid nucleus is present in the sperm head and the anterior portion of which is covered by an acrosome, a cap-like structure. The enzymes are filled in the acrosome which help in the fertilization of the ovum. Numerous mitochondria are present in the middle piece which for the movement of its tail produce energy that facilitates sperm motility essential for fertilization. About 200 to 300 million sperms are ejaculated by the human male during the coitus, of which at least 60% sperms must have normal shape and size and at least 40% of them must show vigorous motility for normal fertility. The accessory ducts transports the sperms released from the seminiferous tubules. For maturation and motility of sperms, secretion of epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle and prostrate are essential. The semen contains the seminal plasma and the sperms. The testicular hormones, namely the androgens, maintain the functions of male sex accessory ducts and glands. Oogenesis is the process of formation of mature female gamete that is markedly different from spermatogenesis. During the embryonic development stage, oogenesis is initiated within each fetal ovary when a couple of million gamete mother cells are formed and no more oogonia are added and formed after birth. These cells undergo meiotic division where they start dividing and enter into prophase 1, and at that stage they get temporarily arrested and are called primary oocytes. A layer of granulosa cells surround each primary oocyte and is called the primary follicle. During the phase from birth to puberty, a large number of these follicles degenerate. Therefore, at puberty in each ovary only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left. More layers of granulosa cells and a new theca surround the primary follicles and are called secondary follicles. Soon the secondary follicle transforms into tertiary follicle called antrum, which is characterized by a fluid-filled cavity. The theca layer is organized into an outer theca externa and an inner theca interna. At this stage, the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle grows in size and completes its first meiotic division. A large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny first polar body is formed as a result of an unequal division. A bulk of the nutrient-rich cytoplasm of the primary oocyte is retained by the secondary oocyte. Can you think of any advantage for this? Born out of first meiotic division, does the first polar body divide further or degenerate? We are not very certain about this at present. The mature follicle or Graafian follicle is formed from further changes to the tertiary follicle. A new membrane called zona pellucida is formed surrounding the secondary oocyte. The secondary oocyte called ovum is released from the ovary by the rupture of Graafian follicle and the process is called ovulation. Can you identify major differences between spermatogenesis and oogenesis? Menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is a reproductive cycle in the female primates. Menarche is the first menstruation which begins at puberty. Menstruation in human females is repeated at an average interval of about 28 or 29 days, and the menstrual cycle is the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one. During the middle of each menstrual cycle, one ovum is released. When menstrual flow occurs, the cycle starts and lasts for 3 to 5 days. Due to breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus, the menstrual flow occurs and its blood vessels which form liquid comes out through vagina. If the released ovum is not fertilized, menstruation occurs. Pregnancy may be indicated in the lack of menstruation. It may, however, also be caused due to some other underlying causes such as stress, poor health, etc. The menstrual phase is followed by the follicular phase. The primary follicles during this phase grow to become a fully mature Graafian follicle in the ovary, and through proliferation simultaneously the endometrium of uterus regenerates. Changes in the levels of pituitary and ovarian hormones induce changes in the ovary and the uterus. During the follicular phase, gradually the secretion of gonadotropins increases and stimulates secretion of estrogens as well as follicular development by the growing follicles. In the middle of the cycle, both LH and FSH attain a peak level. LH surge, which is a rapid secretion of LH leading to its maximum level during the mid-cycle, induces rupture of the Graafian follicle and thereby the ovum is released. The remaining parts of the Graafian follicle transform as the corpus luteum in the luteal stage, which follows after the ovulation. The corpus luteum, for the maintenance of endometrium, secretes large amount of progesterone, which is essential. For implantation of the fertilized ovum, the other events of pregnancy such as endometrium is necessary. All events of the menstrual cycle stop during pregnancy and there is no menstruation. The corpus luteum degenerates in the absence of fertilization. Disintegration of the endometrium is caused by this, leading to menstruation, marking a new cycle. Around 50 years of age, menstrual cycle ceases in human beings, that is termed as menopause. Cyclic menstruation extends between menarche and menopause, and this is an indicator of normal reproductive phase. Fertilization and implantation. Semen is released by the penis into the vagina during copulation. Passing through the cervix, the motile sperm swim rapidly, enter into the uterus and finally reach the ampullary region of the fallopian tube. Also to the ampullary region, the ovum released by the ovary is transported where fertilization takes place. Simultaneously, if the ovum and sperms are transported to the ampullary region, fertilization can occur. Not all copulations lead to fertilization and pregnancy, and this is the reason why. Fertilization is the process of fusion of the sperm with an ovum. A sperm comes in contact with the zona pellucida layer of the ovum during fertilization and induces changes in the membrane, due to which the entry of additional sperms is blocked. Thus, an ovum can be fertilized by only one sperm. Through the zona pellucida and the plasma membrane, the sperms enters into the cytoplasm of the ovum with the help of the secretions of the acrosome. The completion of the meiotic division of a secondary oocyte is induced by this. The second polar body and a haploid ovum is formed as a result of the second meiotic division, which is unequal. Soon the diploid zygote is formed as the haploid nucleus of the sperm and that of the ovum fuse. In the zygote, how many chromosomes will be there? One has to remember that at this stage itself the sex of the baby has been decided. Let us see how. The chromosome pattern, as you know, in human male is XY and that in the female is XX. Therefore, in the female, all the haploid gametes produced have the sex chromosome X, whereas the sex chromosome could be either X or Y in the male gametes. Hence, 50% of the sperms carry the Y chromosome while the other 50% carry X chromosome. After the male and female gametes fuse, and depending on whether the sperm carrying X or Y fertilize the ovum, the zygote would carry either XX or XY. A female baby would develop if the zygote carries XX and the male would form if XY. Scientifically, that is why it is correct to say that by the father the sex of the baby is determined and not by the mother. As the zygote moves through isthmus of the oviduct called cleavage towards the uterus, the mitotic division starts and forms 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells called blastomeres. With 8 to 16 blastomeres, the embryo is called a morula. The morula, as it moves further into the uterus, continues to divide and transforms into blastocyst. In the blastocyst, the blastomeres are arranged into an outer layer called trophoblast, and the inner cell mass are the inner group of cells attached to the trophoblast. The inner cell mass gets differentiated as the embryo and the trophoblast layer then gets attached to the endometrium. The uterine cells after attachment divide rapidly and covers the blastocyst. The blastocyst as a result becomes embedded in the endometrium of the uterus. This leads to pregnancy and is called implantation. Pregnancy and embryonic development. Finger-like projections called chorionic villi appear on the trophoblast after implantation, which are surrounded by maternal blood and the uterine tissue. The uterine tissue and chorionic villi with each other become interdigitated and form a structural and functional unit jointly between developing embryo and maternal body called placenta. The supply of oxygen and nutrients to the embryo and also removal of carbon dioxide and excretory waste materials produced by the embryo is facilitated through placenta. Through an umbilical cord, the placenta is connected to the embryo and it helps in the transport of substances to and from the embryo. Placenta also produces several hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin, human placental lactogen, estrogens, progestogens, etc., and thus acts as an endocrine tissue. A hormone called relaxin is also secreted in the later phase of pregnancy by the ovary. Let us remember that in women, HCG, HPL, and relaxin are produced only during pregnancy. In addition, the levels of other hormones like estrogens, progestogens, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, etc. are increased several folds during pregnancy in the maternal blood. For supporting the fetal growth, metabolic changes in the mother, and for maintenance of pregnancy, increased production of these hormones is essential. The inner cell mass differentiates into an outer layer called ectoderm and an inner layer called endoderm immediately after implantation. Between the ectoderm and the endoderm, the mesoderm soon appears. In adults, these three layers give rise to all tissues. It needs to be mentioned here that certain cells called stem cells are present in the inner cell mass which have the potency to give rise to all the tissues and organs. At various months of pregnancy, what are the major features of embryonic development? The human pregnancy lasts 9 months. In dogs, elephants, and cats, do you know for how many months does the pregnancy last? Find out. The embryo's heart is formed in human beings after 1 month of pregnancy. Through the stethoscope, the first sign of the growing fetus may be noticed by listening carefully to the heart sound. The fetus develops limbs and digits by the end of the 2nd month of pregnancy. Most of the major organ systems are formed. For example, the limbs and external genital organs are well developed by the end of 12 weeks, that is, first trimester. During the 5th month, the first movements of the fetus and appearance of hair on the head are fully observed. By the end of 2nd trimester, that is after about 24 weeks, the body is covered with fine hair, eyelids separate and eyelashes are formed. The fetus is fully developed and is ready for delivery by the end of 9 months of pregnancy. Parturition and lactation. In humans, 9 months is the average duration of pregnancy and it is called the gestation period. Expulsion or delivery of the fetus is caused by the vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy. The fetus is delivered by this process and is called parturition. By a complex neuroendocrine mechanism, parturition is induced. From the fully developed fetus, the signals for parturition originate and mild uterine contractions are induced by the placenta, which is called fetal ejection reflex. From the maternal pituitary, this triggers the release of oxytocin. Stronger uterine contractions are caused when oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles, which in turn stimulates further secretion of oxytocin. Stronger and stronger contractions result as a stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and the oxytocin secretion continues. Through the birth canal parturition, this leads to expulsion of the baby out of the uterus. The placenta is also expelled out of the uterus soon after the infant is delivered. To induce delivery, what do you think the doctors inject? During pregnancy, the mammary glands of the female undergo differentiation, and towards the end of pregnancy, the gland starts to produce milk by the process called lactation. This helps the mother in feeding the newborn. During the initial few days of lactation, the milk produced is called colostrum, which contains several antibodies absolutely essential for the newborn babies to develop resistance. For bringing up a healthy baby, breastfeeding during the initial period of infant growth is recommended by doctors. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with your friends. Leave your comments below and please subscribe to my channel for more content. Click that bell notification that would let you know when a new video is uploaded. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, please subscribe to my channel for more content. For more videos, please check the description box down below.